come together. So, amen for our team. Love it. And our team online. Welcome online. Welcome in person. Glad you're here. I got a simple message. I hope to encourage you in your prayer life. We're in January. This is the time every year we're going to be talking about prayer for the next couple weeks or next week. At the end of service, we're going to have our board up here again. You can put your prayer on the board, and I'll explain that in just a few moments. But every January, it is one of the best things that we do as a church. We recognize something that we want to start the year with an emphasis on prayer, because prayer determines the course. Prayer is the journey that gets us to destination. And here's the truth: we're all headed somewhere. Some may not know where we're going, but the truth is we're all headed somewhere. Our faith is a journey. Our walk is a journey. Our relationship with Christ is a journey. Your family, managing your family is a journey. Everything's a journey. So prayer, we're saying at the beginning of the year, let's focus on prayer. So today is no difference. I want to talk to you about big prayers, bold prayers. Let me ask this question. Anyone in here relate to being an underdog? Any underdogs here? An underdog is someone that has little chance of winning a fight or a contest. The underdog is somebody that is expected to lose. An underdog is not favored. The underdog is looked at and said, you don't have a chance. And I don't know about you, but I know what it's like to be the underdog. I know what that feeling is to be the underdog. And you know what? Sometimes our prayers, when we're believing for something, we feel like that underdog. Sometimes when we are praying for something and believe, sometimes circumstances or this problem or this situation, and we say our prayers don't have a chance. This is impossible. And then what happens with that, when that thought comes in, sometimes the saying comes like, maybe my prayers don't have a chance. Maybe my prayers don't even matter. Being the underdog is that fight is too big. That contest it's not going to work. But there's another popular sports adage that says, a saying that says, that's why they play the game. You ever hear that? That's why. It means this. That saying means that on paper, it doesn't look good. On paper, you're not supposed to win. But because you played the game, the outcome could be different. And so this morning, I want to share with you how we can, as underdogs, if you're believing for something big, if you're believing for the impossible in your life, how, as long as we just play the game, how the outcome could be different. Now, I want to preface this message with this. This message is for someone that's believing for something big. I mean, we can pray prayers that get by. We can pray prayers that just get us through, Sunday through Monday, Sunday through Friday, Sunday through Saturday. We can pray prayers that get us by, but I'm talking about prayers that make a difference, prayers that change lives, prayers that actually involve some sort of life-changing moment. Big prayers, prayers that are impossible. But because we say, this is why we play the game, this is what we're going to do, what we do is we're including God in that game, and with God in it, we have the victory. We have the ultimate victory, even as the underdog. There's a story. The Jewish tradition, they teach this story. This is a story that is told. It's the generation before Christ came, and in the land in Israel there was a dramatic, very dramatic drought. It is said that it had not rained for a whole generation, 10, 20 years, no rain at all, and this land was very, very was suffering dramatically. The crops, the cattle, and people were dying. In fact, the Bible or the story goes on and says that even the prophets, all the prophets in the land had passed away. So what that means is there was nobody that was hearing from God. There was no fresh word from God. There was nothing that was sustaining the people. So it just became this mundane people. People were suffering because of this drought. It's very severe. And people were believing that God could not hear them anymore because the prophets had died. Who was going to hear God? Who was going to encourage the people? And it just was dry and just very, very, very dry, very, very sad. But there was one man by the name of Honi. One man had the faith to come before God. And what he did was he had this 6-foot stick, the 6-foot rod, and what he did was he drew this circle on the ground, and he drew this circle, and he stands in this circle, and he kneels down, and he gets on his knees, and he says this, he says, God, I am not moving from this circle until you send the rain. You imagine? You imagine this guy being your cousin? You imagine just knowing this guy, you're like, man, Honi is just lost it. He's praying this crazy prayer that's impossible prayer, this unrealistic prayer. But Honi put himself in this circle and he said, I am not moving, God. I'm not moving. What a bold prayer. This is the prayer that I'm talking about. This is the prayer that makes a difference. This is the prayer that changes everything. That kind of faith. If anybody was the underdog, it was him. Years and years, no rain, and all of a sudden this guy standing there, kneeling, crying out, God, I'm not moving. God, we need rain. And then the impossible happened. All of a sudden, rain began to come down from heaven. Rain came and it filled the land. And because of Honi's bold prayer, everybody's life was changed. Here's what I want you to know, church. Bold prayers honor God, and God honors bold prayers. Big prayers honor God, and God honors big prayers. Can I tell you something? God is not offended by your big prayer. He's not nervous that you're believing for something miraculous. He's not intimidated by the dreams you have, by the desires you have. He's not worried about the faith you have and how am I going to meet this need. No, this is what God does. This is who He is. He loves it. He loves big prayers. He loves the challenge. He loves to say, "What, you're believing for that? Okay. All right. Let's get in the game. I know it doesn't look good on paper, and I know it seems impossible, but because you're believing, I'm with you. This is what makes God God. This is who He is. This is His heart. You know, to pray these kind of prayers, we have to believe this, that God is for you. He's for you. Yeah, ever wonder why? Like, why would God be for me? Like, I've messed up. I've made mistakes. I don't pray a lot. I don't read a lot. I mean, maybe I have a different, view. But I want to tell you something. God is for you. He wants to bless you. He wants to forgive you. He wants to heal you. He's for you. This is the foundation. This is the one thing that we have to believe if we're going to pray big prayers. He's for you. He's for you. Why? Because he's God and he's for you. This is what Psalms 118 says. I love this verse. In my distress, someone write this verse down. This is for you. In my distress, I prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is for me, so I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? Yes, the Lord is for me. He will help me. Do you know if we don't believe that, do you know we'll pray small prayers? We'll pray timid prayers. We'll just, pray emergency quick. Lord, help me. But if we actually believe that he is for you and he will help you, then you can pray big prayers. You can pray prayers that make a difference. Here's what I want you to know. What you do and who you become is determined by how you pray. One more time. Who you are at your core, who you are, how you, is determined by how you pray. I'll never forget, years ago, my wife and I, we prayed a big prayer. We were born and raised in the Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, and we had been renting for all our life. And we said, God, we want to buy a house right here in San Jose. We don't want to move away. We don't want to move to the outskirts where it's cheaper or more affordable. We want to buy a house. Now, understand this. The housing market is crazy in the Bay Area. I'm sure you guys can understand that. To buy a house, the houses were so expensive. Our issue was just the down payment. How could we save up? Our rent is crazy. It's a lot. How could we continue? We had, kids in school. We had all these other expenses, and we just could not save up that amount of money. But we drew a circle, and we said, God, I'm believing for the impossible. Believe me, it was impossible. There might be some finance people here that says, if you just save and save, do it. We tried that. We tried everything. And you know what we did, actually? We started giving our money away. We started blessing people. This is just what we do. If things get tight, we run out of money, we just give it away. We just give whatever. We just say, God, I'm putting this seed in the ground. I'm putting this seed in the ground. I'm going to do this. And we started just giving money, tithing more than what we normally would tithe. And then here's what happened. I'll never forget this. I was in a meeting at church late in the afternoon. I just got out of this meeting. It was end of day. I just wanted to go home and watch the game or whatever I do. That's what I do. Go home, watch the game. I was on my way, and then I walked out of it, and I was walking down the church hallway, and somebody pulls me aside and hands me a check and said, this is for a down payment for a house. Only for a down payment on a house. They said, you can't pay your debt, your bills, you can't go on vacation, you can't give this is for a down payment for a house. We had a check. Somebody gave us the down payment to buy a house. I said a few minutes ago, I said that how you pray is who you become. I have the faith today to believe that you can buy a house. I have the faith because that was my prayer. God answered it. Now I've become a man that believes that if God can do it for me, if he can bless me, he can bless you. And it doesn't have to be with a house, but if God has healed me, he can heal you. If God has set me free, he can set you free. If God has delivered me, if God has used me, if God has spoken to me, he will speak to you. That's who God is. That's the God we serve. Bold prayers honor God, and God honors bold prayers. Can I teach you how to pray bold prayers? Let's read a story in the Bible, Joshua chapter 6. Chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. It says this: Now the gates of Jericho were tightly shut because of the people were afraid of the Israelites. No one was allowed to go out or in. But the Lord said to Joshua, I have given you Jericho, its king, and all its strong warriors. You and your fighting men should march around the city once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk ahead of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. And on the 7th day, you are to march around the town 7 times with the priests blowing the horns. And when you hear the priests give the long blast on the ram's horn, have all the people shout as loud as they can. Then the walls of the town will collapse, and the people can charge straight into the city. Wow, what an amazing story. Joshua is about to enter the promised land, but there's just one more thing he needs to do. He needs to get through the walls of Jericho. The walls of Jericho were scholars believe they were about 17 feet tall and about 3 feet thick. That's 3 feet. 3 feet thick. Impenetrable. Impossible. But God gave him that city because they prayed bold prayers. Let me tell you, number one, how to pray bold prayers. Number one is this: identify your Jericho. This is where we go from praying just prayers about God's will or praying the daily prayers to saying, you know what, God, this is exactly what I want. I want this. This is the target. This is the aim. This is how specific I want to be. This is exactly what I am believing for. It may sound impossible to somebody. You may be in this circle all by yourself, and people may think, why are you believing for that? You can't afford that. You can't be that. You're just a single mom, or you can't do that. Identify your Jericho. The problem sometimes we have is we don't even understand what we want. And we just pray Lord's will, and there's nothing wrong with praying Lord's will, but we're talking about big prayers. We're talking about prayers that make a difference, prayers that change lives. Matthew 20 says this. This is Jesus saying in an interaction with a couple of guys. Jesus heard from them. He stopped and called, and he said, what do you want me to do for you? There's 2 blind men sitting outside on the side of the road. And Jesus is walking by, and he hears this cry, and their cry is like, Son of God, have mercy on us. Son of God, have mercy on us. They keep shouting that. And then Jesus comes, and he looks him in the eyeball, and he says, do you just want mercy? He says, what do you want? Interesting question. He knew they were blind. He knew they couldn't see. He knew of everything these guys wanted was to regain their sight back. So he said to them, what do you want? What if Jesus said that to us? What exactly do you want? Maybe our prayer would change from, Son of God, have mercy on us, to, Lord, I'm believing for my marriage. I'm believing for a spouse. I'm believing for breakthrough in my family. What if he looks at you in the eye and says, what exactly do you want? Can you spell out your Jericho? Can you pinpoint the one thing that you are absolutely believing for? Can you just say, God, this is what I want. This is my Jericho. This is my desire. And can I challenge you to do something this week, in your prayer time, whether you're driving, whether you're spending time in the morning, I want you to do this. Be bold and write down exactly what you are believing for and say, God, this is what I want. And keep it in front of you. And when you spend time with God, you say, God, this is what I want. This is my circle. This is my target. God, I want this. Jesus said this in John 14:14. He said, ask me for anything, and I will do it. Wow. What if we just grab onto that verse and say, God, anything? Ask me for anything, and I will do it. Number 2 is this, how to pray bold prayer. Number 2, follow God's direction. Notice when God gave the direction to Joshua, he was pretty specific. I want you to walk around 6 times. I want no one to talk. I want the priest to go before. I want the warriors to follow behind. I want the horns to go at this time. And on the 7th day, I want 7 times, and then shout, and then it'll happen. There's an order when it comes to God. Why? Because our prayers are tied to obedience. We can't disobey him and ask him to bring down the walls. We can't refuse to give and ask God to bless us financially. Can't rob God and then ask for his blessing. You can't refuse to forgive somebody and expect God to completely forgive us. We can't resist authority and ask God for promotion. His word matters. His system matters. His structures matter. Unfortunately, he doesn't say, I know you've had a bad run. I know it's been a bad year. And because of that, mijo, mija, you're going to be the exception. I'm going to exclude my word and my system, and because you've gotten bad, you're going to No, we're talking about life-changing prayers. We're talking about bold prayers. We're talking about prayers that bring down walls. We're talking about prayers that push us to the promised land. His system matters. Our obedience matters. John 15:5 says this. Yes, I am the vine and you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Verse 7, but if you remain in me, my words remain in you, you may ask me for anything you want, and it will be granted. This is the words of Jesus. This is his heart. We have to remain in him and he in us. And I'll admit, his ways, they're not always logical. I love a clear plan. I love a clear schedule. I love knowing what I'm going to do and what to do next. But sometimes God just says, go do that, take the ram's horn, blow it at this time. And by the way, don't say, he's specific. Sometimes God wants us to go on this journey, and it's a faith journey because it's building us up. And sometimes it just requires faith. And you look and you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I struggling? Why am I hurting? But because God is doing something. We don't always understand it. Maybe we're not supposed to. Maybe we're just supposed to say, yes, Lord. Yes. It hurts. My ego, my pride. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to serve you. I'm not going to give up. Here's the truth. God sees our obedience, not just our needs and desires. He sees our obedience activates the hand of God. Number three, and I'm going to close with this point. Persist in prayer. Boldly persist. Jesus said, to his disciples, you should always pray and never give up. You should always pray and never give up. Sometimes when you're in the middle of a crisis, you're staring at a challenge, sometimes it's paralyzing. I remember when my son, when he said to me, I don't want to go to church anymore. I was paralyzed. This is what we do. This is who we are. I remember we went to prayer. And did he come back to church after the first prayer? No. The second prayer? No. But we persisted. And we fought. And we fasted. And we prayed. We got bold. And we said, God, I'm not losing my son to this world. I'm not. And we drew a circle. And we said, God, we trust you and believe you. Maybe you're here and there's something that's impossible. There's something you're believing for. There's something or someone, and it just seems impossible. And this is the underdog prayer. Is like, I think I'm going to lose, but here it is. But let me encourage you, don't give up. Don't give up. Jesus said, keep praying and don't give up. Persistent prayer is about consistency and it's about intensity. I'm going to hold on to your word, God. I'm going to hold on to your word. I'm not letting go to your promise. Our faith activates his promises. You imagine being in Joshua's crew, 6,000 Israelites. No, 60,000, I'm sorry. 60,000 people. I'm sure some of those people were walking around that city saying, what are we doing? What if we just go back to Egypt? At least there we had onion soup. Why are we going around the city? It's impossible. These walls are not going to come down. Why don't we just fight these guys? If God is for us, why not go that way and just knock down these walls? Imagine 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. By day 6, you're done. Why? Is this even worth it? Is God even for real? But here comes day 7. And you follow God's plan. And day 7 comes 7 times around the city, and then the shout of your life, and the walls come down. Welcome to the promised land. I bet there's someone here on day 7. Don't give up. Don't give up. There's somebody here that says, just one more time around this wall. One more time. Don't give up. You know what I want to do this morning as we worship and we're going to pray. We have these prayer boards that we brought out last week. I want to invite you to come up. And I want you to write your biggest, boldest prayer. Maybe on prayer, you might be worried if somebody sees that's so impossible. That's so crazy. But I want you to write it. And we're going to pray. We're going to activate this. We're going to believe God for the impossible. Because that's why we play the game. Is because God is on our team. So as we worship just for a moment, I want you to think about it. If you're ready, you can come on up. We have We have Post-its and markers. Well, let's believe for the impossible. Let's write our biggest, boldest prayer.